Hello everybody, Vince Dowd here, and I'm excited to share with you how to speak to monetize. And this tonight is going to be a review of a video that I was speaking at. Now, if you followed me, you know that I've traveled all over the world and trained over 500,000 people on financial literacy, everything from the business markets to the stock market, options, real estate, and interweaving many things of self-help and consciousness and so forth. So tonight I'm going to take a little bit of time and kind of break down a couple steps for you in regard to how do you speak to monetize? How do you use your language, your speaking, to make money? So we're going to dive into that. I'm going to just adjust my Mac here so I can make sure I see any comments that come up. But if you do come on, please go ahead and drop a comment in the comments below here on Facebook, and I'd be more than happy to engage with you. That would be wonderful. So we're going to get into speaking to monetize, and selling over $60 million from stage. I think I've learned a few things about language and language patterns, tonality, how to engage an audience, how to get them to move, how to get them, there's something called room control. When you have big crowds or small crowds, how do you become the one that's in charge? Everything from hecklers, I've dealt with it all over the world. So I hope you find this very valuable. What I figured I would do, thanks to my mentor sharing with me a good little idea I thought would be really good to do, is to kind of show you a clip from one of my speaking events and kind of show you why I did what I did, kind of give you some insight. So if you are looking to actually use your voice to monetize, to speak to monetize, then I encourage you to grab a pen, take some notes. I'll be doing this more and more because what I want to really do is give you a lot of value. I've been fortunate in my life in the fact that I learned to speak when I was in my 20s, and I did a lot of it through osmosis. I didn't really have training. I went out and watched a lot of presentations. I kept trying and failing, and then I actually got it going, and I learned through trial and error. And I can save you a lot of time, shaving 5, 10, 15 years off your learning curve. I've invested hundreds of thousands to date in my own education, but I've also learned a lot of things on my own. Some things I've learned from other great speakers, great orators, great salespeople, great masters of the stage and mentors. So let's go ahead and dive into this. And if you're watching this and you're not live tonight, no problem. I encourage you, though, to act like it is live, take some notes. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. If I don't see them, I will come back and watch those and answer them. And also, if you are watching on replay, go ahead and type in hashtag replay. And that way I'll know. So here's the first thing we're going to do. We're going to go in and watch. What I want to do, first of all, is we're going to go and we're going to watch a little clip of a video of me, okay? And the reason we're going to do this because I want to kind of take you through move by move to show you what I was doing and why. So if you're ever finding yourself doing a presentation, or maybe you are already doing many presentations, I'm going to give you some insights as to why I did what I did or said what I said. So I hope you enjoy it. Let's go ahead, and I'm going to move us over to the screen here. I'm going to start the video, and I'll stop it, and we'll come in and talk about it. Thank you. Good afternoon. Okay, let's just ask the question. Who's here because you want to make some more money? Raise your hand, please. Okay, if your hand's not up, you're probably looking for the motivation seminar. Okay, so the first thing I'm doing here, by the way, is when I go up on stage, I have the clapping, of course. Most of these people, probably all of them, have never seen me speak. And you saw me hug Brad, right? So that's what I do. I make sure I hug who's ever introducing me. It creates a connection with them and me. And it also shows the audience that we're a caring bunch of people. And then when I get on stage, what I do first is I position the audience. Okay, so I position the audience. I want to take you over to this. So when you're coming onto the stage, there's always a stage here that you're approaching, and it could be a real stage like I had where I'm elevated above the crowd, or it could be just you're on the floor, but we'll still call it the stage area. Okay, so when I come up on stage, The one thing that I think is important to do, and I did not do this when I was younger because I was so nervous. I got up on stage and I would start moving. The nervous energy had me moving. In fact, maybe some of you out there have spoken before and you had nervous energy. In fact, let me know in the comments if you've ever gone on stage and you're really nervous and you're moving everywhere. A good example of that would be if you watch speakers, it's really fascinating. As a speaker, I love to watch it. A lot of speakers will get up on stage and they'll pace back and forth, walking side to side as they talk. As they walk side to side like this, they don't notice how much they're doing it. But what happens is the crowd's eyes are going left to right, left to right. And this is basically nervous energy, and it creates a distraction if you're speaking. If you do that, you're not showing stability, confidence. And the best example would be if you've ever gone to the zoo and have watched a tiger or a lion in a cage, and you see them pace back and forth in that cage. They want to get out of that cage. They're kind of antsy. And so when you're on stage as a speaker, you do not want to do that pacing. And I've seen so many professionals do this, and I don't think they've ever learned that energy is causing a distraction. So the first thing I want you to know is when I was speaking on the topic, my very first topic was the stock market. What I understood is when I come to the stage, I need to plant myself. Okay, I plant myself and I'm solid. Now think about this. Why would I plant myself if I'm teaching financial information right away without moving? Why do you think that would be? Instead of, moving around like a lot of people do. And I want you to think psychologically, why would I plant myself and hold still? Well, the reason is because people's money, they don't want to see it moving all around. They want to know that it's solid. And so if I'm representing a product like money or investing, I need to show that it's solid. Now, when I was a young speaker, I had a lot of energy. It was hard for me to do to sit still or to hold still. But what it does is it gives the audience one point of focus. And now they're listening to you. They're not watching you move around and distract them, one of these things. They're actually able to see you, hear you, and see that you're solid, you're planted. Now later you can move, but the point is for the first 30 seconds, you might want to hold still. And what I mean by that is not pacing. Of course, you're going to move your arms, your head, and so forth. So the next thing that I did, so let me write these down here. The first thing was I planted, faced the audience, right? So I faced the audience and I asked a question. So the second thing I did is called a question, or it positions the audience. Remember, when we're speakers, a lot of times we get focused on thinking about us, right? It's always about me. Do I remember what I'm going to say? Am I nervous? It's all these I statements. If we can move that energy and focus on the audience and realize it's not about me, it's about the audience and how I can serve them. So you want to come up with some questions that are yes-based questions that allow them to answer and that are relative to the topic that you're going to be teaching, okay? So let me replay this back here and I'll show you kind of what I said. Let me move this over. I'm going to go back, rewind it a bit. All right, we'll go back to that part right there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the other view and we'll play it again.
Thanks, Brad. Thank you. Good afternoon. Okay, let's just ask the question. Who's here because you want to make some more money? Raise your hand.
Okay, so notice what I did. I planted. I did look at both sides of the room. There's about 500 people in the room. I looked at both sides of the room, letting them know I see them. Now, I could have paused a little bit longer there, actually, and given a little bit more silence before I asked the question. Pausing's always been a challenge for me, but that is very powerful when you have a pause. The pause is so critical. So we will talk about that along the way. But I planted, and then I asked the question. And what's the question? I asked about money. Let's do that again.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Okay, let's just ask the question. Who's here because you want to make some more money? Raise your hand, please.
So since it's a financial seminar, and I know they came to make money, it's a trading seminar on how to make money in the stock market. Oh, sorry, this is a business seminar. So this is not trading. This is actually with Dame and John. So these were mostly business owners who had all kinds of different businesses, startups, bigger businesses, franchises, solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, founders. And the goal is who wants to make more money, right? So I asked that question. Now keep in mind, as an entrepreneur, a lot of times entrepreneurs are not always driven by money. They might be driven by other things like service, or just because they love to invent something and give value to the planet. Think about Elon Musk. He's not really money motivated. Elon is looking to give value by getting us to Mars. Because Elon believes that we are going to go extinct if we do not get a multiple planet race. So in this journey to go to Mars, he's actually making money along the way through Solar City and Tesla and the Boring Company. But the point is, he wasn't money's part of the process, but his goal was to do something bigger than money. So the next question I ask, and of course this one, I want you to notice what I did here too. When I asked the question, I first asked the question, who would like to make more money? And then I raise my hand. That is the signal to them to know that I should raise my hand. If you watch a lot of speakers, they'll ask the question, who wants to make more money? And the speaker doesn't raise their hand, so the audience doesn't know what to do. They will not raise their hands. So they're getting a disconnect from the speaker to the audience because they're already confused. It's very important we tell them what to do by showing them what to do. And I don't go out first and raise my hand, which a lot of speakers do this. How many people would like to make more money? And their hand's already up in the air. It looks goofy. So what we want to do is ask the question, raise your hand if you would like to make more money. And once you've completed the statement, you raise your hand, you wait for them to raise their hands. Now they're in agreement with you, okay? You have the audience agreeing with you. We are building rapport. I'm here to teach you to make money. You're here to learn to make money. Raise your hand. Now we have a connection, right? That's first rapport. However, some people might not be that excited about money. So I go on to ask another question.
Okay, if your hand's not up.
Now, first of all, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a little joke. This joke did not come out right this day. I remember this day. It was in Fort Lauderdale, actually. And there was a weird energy in the room. I was off a little bit, and I was a little bit intense. But the question, or the little joke I make here usually gets a big laugh, but I misworded it here. So listen to this.
Probably looking for the motivation seminar. That's the wrong room, by the way. Who's here not just to make money, but you act...
Okay, so nobody laughed. What I usually say is, if your hand's not up, you're probably looking for the motivation seminar. Tony Robbins is in the next room. And what happens is I usually get a really big laugh out of that. It did not fall right. Sometimes that will happen. Let me show it to you again, because it did not fall right.
Motivation seminar.
Wait. Let me go back.
Okay, if your hand's not up, you're probably looking for the motivation seminar. That's the wrong room, by the way.
And that's the wrong room. That was a mess up. Okay. So there was an error right there that was not dialed in. So usually I nail those. For some reason that day I didn't. Don't worry about it. Just continue on. Okay. So that's first question. I had a little joke, right? It kind of eases up the audience when I have a little joke in the beginning. It makes them, ease up, especially this crowd. This crowd was very tough crowd. And when I worked with Damon's crowds, they were very tough crowds. A lot of them came from the inner city. A lot of them came from different backgrounds where they, had some tough things happen. So to break through is harder. Also, I will just be honest with you. A lot of people would come to the training expecting to see Damon John. Because the brochures would say Damon John, his picture was on it. My picture wasn't on it. I had some advertising with my picture on it. But overall, people came because people are selective in what they're reading and listening to. And when they came, they would expect Damon John. And here's some white guy in a suit. And I don't want to offend anybody here, but this was the same thing I would say to my audiences because 95% were African Americans. And I don't see any difference. Personally, for me, I look at human beings as human beings. We are all one. If you know me, you know my philosophy on this. But I also know sometimes you have to be hard on people to help them grow. So they would come in and they sometimes were not happy that it was me versus Damon. So going into a training like that, which is very interesting, it's already kind of, I have a leg down because their expectations were up here. And then what happens is they get not Damon, but me. And that, I had hecklers. I had things happen in those seminars that never happened in any other seminar. And we can talk about that as we go down the road. But the thing is, you're going to get hecklers if you're doing seminars to big groups. Not everybody's going to dance when you want them to dance. So here's the next question I asked.
Who's here not just to make money, but you actually want to do something where you build something that creates real value, impacts your family and the community?
So this question goes from the money, the physical surface level, and it goes to a deeper level. Because I know as an entrepreneur myself, and I've worked with thousands upon thousands of them, many of these entrepreneurs are driven by an inner desire to serve at a higher level, to provide some kind of new product or service or value to the planet. And so even in Europe, a lot of times in Europe when I was teaching, a lot of these entrepreneurs are not so turned on by money. If you've ever been to Sweden or Norway or some of those places, they are not so turned on by money. Hello, I see I have Isaac on. Hi, Isaac, how are you? And Jay Ma, how you doing? Good to see you. Isaac said, I thought that was fire, to be honest. Today's world needs structure, no? I thought the fire, I'm not sure which, I guess I missed your comment, Isaac, and when you said it, but I'm not sure what you meant by fire. Jay Ma said, I went to Damon's seminar before and it was not Damon. Yeah, it was probably me. Jay Ma, right? So let me keep going. I'll come back to your questions. It's just kind of hard to see with my space here, but that's okay. So now what I did is I went to the deeper level. I was asking the point, I know that there's different levels that we all have in our human needs. If you don't have a lot of money, you're probably trying to make money, right? However, as you make more money, you're not as interested in making money in a lot of cases. You're interested in serving more or reaching higher levels on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, maybe reaching enlightenment, right? So wherever you're going, you're starting there. I start with money on a financial event because it's going to be so much better to connect with most of the audience because almost everybody, especially today, wants more money, right? Wouldn't you? In fact, type in BAM if you want more money. Because I think today a lot of people want more money either way. So the next thing I did is I went deeper into their, kind of into their soul. And I asked, who wants to do something that lights you up basically, that serves community and makes a difference, right? So let me go back and play that again so we can listen to what I said.
Because you want to make some more money, raise your hand, please.
There's the money.
Okay, if your hand's not up, you're probably looking for the motivation seminar. That's the wrong room, by the way. Who's here not just to make money, but you actually want to do something where you build something that creates real value, impacts your family and the community. In fact, say aye to that one.
Now, here's what I did. So I said, who wants to do something that impacts your family? Of course, number one fear that people have is the failure in their ability to take care of their family. Also for the community, because people want to be seen as givers. They want to know that they're giving value. The next thing I said, what was it? I kind of missed the next thing I said, actually.
Do that with being an entrepreneur. Money. The money's a byproduct of service. The more people you serve, the more money.
Let me go back to that again because I want to hit the points here.
Who's here not just to make money, but you actually want to do something where you build something that creates real value, impacts your family and the community.
So you build something, right? You're building that creates value. So there's multiple things here. You want to build something. People love to build. That creates value. They want to know it's valuable. That serves community and your family, right? So I'm hitting a lot of different layers there. And what I'm doing is I'm building this rapport, this bridge between the audience and me. And you know, I don't know if I'll do it in this video specifically, but I would do things from that stage that really a lot of speakers wouldn't do, but it really created a rapport because, and again, like I mentioned, since 90% were African American, I did not see them as different than me. obviously different skin color, but I was not afraid to say things that might cause people to sit back in their seats. And I'll tell you how I do this, by the way. I want to bring it up here, although it's not in this part of it. I think it's really important, though, to understand that when we're operating as speakers, we're not speaking lower level to higher level or higher level to lower level. We're equal people, human beings. And I look at it that way. I don't care who's in my room. And I'm willing to call things out that maybe other people won't. So I'd always say things like this. And here's the thing I'd say in the beginning. You might find today I push your buttons. In fact, what does that mean? Let me come to you guys here. Here's an example of what I do. I'd say, okay, so let me just explain something to you. I might push your button today. Now, what's that mean? Who's ever had their button pushed? Now, some people don't know what that means, so I explain it. Well, that means somebody agitates you. They come into your life, could be your kids, could be your spouse, and people start pointing at each other in the audience. They push your button. And what do? We get agitated because they're pushing our button. It causes us to react. And then I say, what do you like to do with people like that? And people might say crazy things. I say, usually you want to get them out of your circle, right? You don't want them in your environment because it causes you agitation. Is that yes? And so everybody agrees with me. And it's funny because that actually opens up some fun in the beginning where people loosen up because I have people pointing to their spouse, or when I say kids, they really get it. And then I say, you know what's interesting? I lived in an ashram and with a guru, a yogi master. And when I came to his ashram, he said, Vince, you have a lot of buttons and I'm going to be pushing them. And I explained, I used to be agitated, everything. People driving wrong, I was always upset, right? People would agitate me. He goes, what I'm going to tell you, though, is when I push your buttons, you're going to want to get rid of the button pusher. But I'm going to tell you to get rid of the button. Because when you get rid of your button, nobody can push it. And then you have true power. So if I say anything today that offends you, remember this. I am not here to offend you. But if you get offended, the offense is in you. And I would encourage you to write down what did offend you and see in yourself whether or not that's something you should look at. Now, this is kind of bold to do this. I'm not telling you to do it, but I did it, and it made a huge difference because where they used to see Damon John up here and me down here, I had people walk out and said, you changed my life. I don't think I would have got that with Damon. And another thing that was really fascinating is I had some people tell me that they were so glad that I told them to watch the presentation with no bias. Because if they're going to be upset that Damon's not here, they're going to miss the entire gift that I'm giving them. Perhaps the divine or perhaps the synchronicity of them being here is because I have a message for them that's going to impact their life. But if they're too busy thinking about what they did not get, they're going to miss what they're getting right now in the present moment. So if you say little sound bites like this, it really does help people to get out of this angry mood or this expectation idea and come back down to be more present in the room. So I hope that that's something that might benefit you. Let me see if you guys have any other questions on it. Nope. Okay. Does that make sense to you guys that are watching? I don't know who's watching. It looks like Isaac and Jema. I don't know if anybody else is there. But let me know if that made sense and if you like it. So let's go back to the video.
In fact, say aye to that one.
Okay, so after the second question, what I did is I said, in fact, say, and I noticed my hand was going like this. That means bring in the applause or say aye. I said, say aye to that one, right? So what I'm doing is I'm getting them, first of all, to make a little tiny movement, which is raise your hand. From the beginning of the training, I need to train my clients to start taking actions and trust me. It's very much, they're not going to just do what you want them to do. And sometimes some audiences, they just won't do it if it's a cold audience. But I get them doing it. I even have them stand up and sit down. Because when I get them doing that, they're getting programmed in a sense to listen to me and to trust me and to take action. So now what I did is I went from raising your hand to say I. Okay, so then there's a little bit of energy in the room. And you're going to find that sometimes the energy in the room just drops because they've been sitting a long time, or maybe the content was really heavy. When that happens, it's important to remember you're modulating energy. Let me go to the pad and show you this. This is really important. I learned this from one of my mentors a long time ago in London. And here's what it is. When you're doing a seminar or a training, you've got to remember that you're managing, first of all, you're managing the audience's energy and your energy as well. So if the audience goes flat, it's going to be hard to connect with them. It's going to be hard to get them to do what you want them to do. And if you're not getting them to do what you want them to do throughout the event, when it comes to the time for you to call them to action to go buy your program or to take action on whatever it is you're offering them, they're not going to do it because you've let them off the hook. So when I see audiences go flat, I'll do things like listen, and I'll give a little sound bite. Like you could just review something and say, you know, the best thing you can do to get a reaction is to take action. Something like that, right? So then I'll say, turn to your neighbor and give them a high five. And now what they'll do is they'll turn and do one of those. And if they don't do it, I'll say, come on, guys, let's get the energy up, because energy is the key for success. And if you can't take the energy right now to do that, how are you going to grow a business? How are you really going to grow a business? So then I'll call them, I'll hold them accountable. Now turn to your neighbor, give them a high five, right? So now what I have is a little bit of energy. If it's still low, the next time I might have them stand up because, you know, they've been sitting a while. So we've got to manage the seminar energy so it doesn't flatline and kill your audience. We also have to manage the content. Okay, so we have the content. We've got to make sure we're coming in with good content that's high value so they feel like they're being taken care of. Now, I have trained a lot of different companies. A lot of seminars out there do not give a lot of great value. They give sizzle. Maybe you've heard of the sizzle. Sizzle's okay. It's nice to have some sizzle, but if there's no steak, nobody wants the sizzle. Maybe you've been to a seminar where you realized it's all sizzle and there's no meat. Hi, Bridget. Good to see you on here. Maybe you've seen that. In fact, have any of you been to a seminar where it's just all talk of whatever, but there's no real meat? If you have, let me know. I've been to many of those. And then you leave kind of deflated. And then sometimes you go and you get the meat, but it's so dang boring. So if you get the meat and there's no sizzle, you're bored and it's hard to retain the information. So we need to balance that content where we have sizzle, meat, sizzle, meat, sizzle, meat. So they're actually eating from your content, not the whole steak, inch by inch. It's a cinch. But with that sizzle, you got to keep the sizzle up. What creates the sizzle? The stories, right? The stories, the metaphors, the analogies. And what keeps the sizzle up is your energy as a speaker modulating, making sure you're not a monotone speaker who speaks the same level the whole time like this. Some people think monotone is low value, but really you can do monotone at the same level. If you talk like this the whole thing, people are going to go nuts. So what you want to be able to do is don't talk like the monotone the whole time on a lower level either, because they will be asleep in a few minutes. We need to be able to modulate between our ups and then when we go into a very deep, whispering place and we slow it down, they're going to lean in. They're going to listen more, even if it's not something that's important. So there's different archetypes we can embody throughout this: the warrior, the sage, the joker, the sovereign. All these are just different archetypes, and we're managing this energy with our troops, okay? Now, the third thing here we're going to manage is our sales. Now remember, it's really important, and I did not learn this early on, that your sales are not happening at the end. Your sales happen throughout the entire presentation. So when we're modulating sales, we've got to remember what we're doing is we're seeding each of these sales throughout the presentation. They do not know typically that you're planting the seeds, right? The seeds of the sale, But if you do it right, they're all going to sprout at the end, and they're all going to grow into this beautiful plant where they're going to want to buy what you have if you've done it right. So we got to remember, managing our energy in the room energy, making sure the content with the sizzle is in balance, and also the sales where we're actually seeding bonuses, seeding sales throughout, and then we'll have the call to action at the end. Does that give you some value? Let me know what you think of that. If that makes sense to you, let me know. Ricardo, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. So let me go back to the video. So what I did is I opened it up. We asked a couple questions. That's where I'm at. We've asked 2 questions. I planted myself, and I gave a little bit bonus.
Isn't that what being an entrepreneur is about?
So there I asked, after I asked them who would like to build something of high value to impact your community and serve your family. And I say, raise your hand. In fact, say I. So I get a verbal agreement. I get a hand raise. Then I asked one more question. Listen to that. Very powerful question. Isn't that what being an entrepreneur is all about? Now, I know there's some people in the room that may think, no, that's not what it's about. It's about making money, right? Shark Tank came out, and we have so many great entrepreneurs from Shark Tank. And a lot of people started because they wanted to make money. But I think more people started their business because they realized they have a talent inside of them. And they have something that was given by the divine that they can take to the world and give value and make a difference. And because of that power, they went out and started their own business. And that's really cool because now they're making money, which is a byproduct of serving more people. If you want to make more money, serve more people, right? That's the key. So is there any questions on that so far? Any questions from you guys that are watching, team? If you do have any questions, just let me know. I'm going to keep going, and I'll look for them as I'm in here.
It's really not about the money. The money's a byproduct of service. The more people you serve, the more money you'll make. So the focus that we have, whether it's Damon and myself, is really taking the attention off of our...
Now notice what I did there. I used Damon as almost a mentor. So I said, even though Damon's not there, I said, the focus we have, whether it's Damon, right? Damon, that's why they came, Damon John, or myself. And what I've just done now, I've just anchored myself to Damon John. So now in their mind, they're like Damon or Vince. Damon or Vince. They're kind of together. Vince is here teaching for Damon. So it becomes very powerful when we can anchor ourselves to somebody else of higher level. And then there's multiple ways to do this, actually. I did this with Robert Kiyosaki as well when I taught for Rich Dad. You can use them and their positioning and their credibility by using them with you. And now their credibility rubs off on you. Does that make sense? Thank you, Bridget. I want to change the word from killing it, though. That's a word that I've used a lot myself. And now that I'm working conscious language, killing is probably not the word we want to use. How about I'm bringing life to it? I think that's better. Give me a high five if you agree. High five. Bringing life. Because killing it, we all use that, but really the more I study the language patterns we're using, each word has such meaning and such vibratory situation. So I think by changing that word to you're bringing life to this would be more empowering than you're killing it. So if I say that, I want you to call me on it too, because I'm still on the journey, and I think it's really important that I get called on things that are still old patterns for me. So I'm calling you on it so that I can remember not to say killing it as well, because I've done it many, many times. But thank you so much for, I know what you meant, by the way. Okay, let me see. Let's go back to the video.
Putting it onto others on how we can serve. And we will then grow a phenomenal business. It's really about service, and money's the byproduct of that. Now, let me ask this question.
So now I've made my points, and it's 54 seconds, right? So for 54 seconds, I stood still at the center of the stage. I was planted. I made contact with both sides of the room, right? If you looked at my eyes, I was making eye contact. I don't go like this when I'm making eye contact. That's weird. We call that spray paint eyes. We don't do that. You pick somebody maybe in the front row, you make a point, you look at them and don't take your eyes off of them. Then you look maybe somebody way at the back corner. And as I do that, everybody in my line of focus will feel I'm looking at them. Maybe you've experienced it in a seminar recently where somebody is looking your way and talking and you feel they're talking to you. Have you experienced that? I'll give you an example with my mentor, Joel Bauer, which this happened to me many, many years ago. I flew out to LA and he had this program called, what was it called? It's Passion to Profit, I believe at the time, or Profit Point. And I flew out there and I had never met him before. And I'm sitting in this audience of probably 200 people. And I'm sitting probably, speakers left probably about halfway down in the middle of the room. And I went up and I did something. Well, we're going up to do something. And as I was sitting down, he starts talking and I don't know who it is to. And so what he does is he looks and he says, "Sir, do you know that you are too tall for your hair?" And I'm going, oh, what's he talking about? He goes, "Do you understand you're too tall for your hair?" There's like 400 people in the room. I'm like, I'm too tall for my hair. I don't know. I'm so nervous because he's talking to me. And I don't know because I don't know what he means by my hair. And I was really feeling uncomfortable because it looked like he was looking at me. However, after about 45 seconds of me sweating, I turned behind me and there's a bald guy. He was talking to the bald guy, which was many seats behind me actually. But because he was looking my direction, I thought he was talking to me. And maybe you've had that experience. Obviously, I had hair, so it didn't make sense. That's why I was confused. But the bald guy was too tall for his hair. I don't know if Joel remembers that, but that was pretty funny. So anyway, let's go back. Hi, Tia. How are you? Good to see you. Tia is a great speaker. She is out there bringing life. Bridget, I almost said killing it. Bringing life to young people. So I'm glad you're here, Tia. I think there's some good things I've shared here that might help you. So,
would you all agree with me that everybody in this room, in fact, everybody in the world, has been programmed from the time we were born? Yes or no?
So here's what I did. I moved now off my center point. I went over to the right, speaker right, and I did ask a question again. Notice what I'm doing is I'm asking questions to build the rapport. Now, it's really important that you know what kind of question you're going to ask. Because if you go out on stage, and I've seen so many speakers do this, they go out on stage and they ask the stupidest questions you can ask, and you're actually building a wall between you and them. And I've done it myself. I've done probably everything mistake I've made, not once. I had to do it many times. So make sure you craft your questions to see if they're going to relate to you. So I asked, would everybody agree with me? What would be better is to say who would agree with me. Let me tell you why. This is really important, guys. Write this down. When you say, even on a webinar, when you use the word, let me go to my pad. When you use the word, does everybody, B-O-D, okay, that's a V. Does everybody agree? First of all, everybody is a universal. There's no such thing as everybody doing anything like that. So that already creates a lack of trust. So we want to change it to who would agree. Make sense? And when I say who would agree, what I'm doing is I'm taking the many and making it feel like one. Who would agree? I would agree. But everybody, who's everybody? Now I'm thinking everybody, there's a lot of people here, and it doesn't feel as personal. Who would agree, right? Who would agree that, and then I ask my question, that we are programmed. Now, some people might not agree to that. In fact, let me ask you watching, would you agree that throughout our lives, we've been programmed on many different levels? Yes or no? Would you agree? Type in POW, P-O-W, if you agree. Type in POW. Now, I know there's going to be people that don't agree. Not as many. I think most people are going to realize they've been programmed, but most people realize, yeah, through the news, through the church, through the school, through my family, through whatever, I've been programmed. And thank you, Isaac. Yeah, thank you, Bridget. So, and you know, you might get one or two that doesn't agree with you, and that's okay. In fact, would you guys love to learn how to change a belief? Raise your hand if you'd like to learn how to change a belief in your audience. You know, I can't see you raising your hands, but I hope you are. So here's what you do. So you make a statement like that, and you say, would you agree with me that we've all been programmed? Raise your hand if you agree. Now, what happens is there's going to be some people in that room that think, nah, that's a bunch of hoo. But then they're going to see 400 people raising their hands, and they're going to go, oh my gosh, maybe I'm wrong. Because now you have social proof that they agree with me. Raise your hand if you agree. Okay, look, we all understand. We're on the same page. We've been programmed, myself included. Now let's fix it, right? And this will head off a lot of hecklers as well, because hecklers like to get in there to try to heckle you. If you've ever had one, I've had many. Some I've handled beautifully. In the early days, I did not do so well with hecklers. But that will slow them down from heckling you, because if you have the crowd on your side, it's going to be hard to get a heckler. However, if the crowd is not liking you, you will not only get one heckler, you might get a bunch. So it's really important that you focus on the open and you implement these things, such as open-ended questions, closed-ended questions, more closed-ended. When you're opening this, you got to really figure out how you're going to ask an open-ended, because it's an audience and you don't want to lose control. So use closed-ended questions and get agreements verbally and with movement. And notice this last picture here on my opening. Does anybody know what that pose is called? Hi, Michael. Good to see you. What's a heckler? A heckler is somebody that they're pretty much people that are looking for significance. So when I'm the speaker, right? When you're the speaker, you're God in that room. That is your room. You're in control. Nobody's in control but you. They came to see you. A heckler wants to step up in the audience and try to take control from you. Usually it's very negative. They're trying to challenge you. They're trying to decredit you, deplatform you. And this happens because they typically are people that have a need for significance because they don't get it in the real world. So they need to wedge themselves into something to prove their ego is better than yours. So there's a way to deposition them. And I've done it many ways. So that's a heckler. This pose here that I'm in, does anybody know what this pose? Okay, Michael says it's open and honest. Anybody else have an idea of what this pose is? This is a very powerful pose as a speaker. I do it naturally many times because I've done it so much. This is basically an open-hearted pose, right? This is an open-hearted pose showing vulnerability. Now, has anybody ever had a cat? I've noticed this, where you get a cat and you put it upside down and its belly's facing you and it doesn't like it. Like if you touch its belly, it will claw you. That's too vulnerable. The cat does not like it, right? Some dogs don't like it either, but I've seen it with cats where they'll get really violent unless they really trust you. And so that means I'm opening myself to you, the crowd, showing you my kimono and showing you I have nothing to hide. I am real. And it's a body gesture, but it says a lot emotionally and energetically. So the more you can do this, the more open you are. Especially if you're telling a story from the heart, it really opens you up, okay? So that's very powerful. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, Isaac, I think that helped with that. Makes sense to Isaac. Okay, good. It's inviting, says Tia. Yes. In fact, there's the pose called the giver. Now, the giver pose looks like this. Usually if you do something open-handed like that, that's the giver. So let's come back to this example. When I was younger, there was a president by the name of President Bill, see if you guys know who it is, Bill Clinton. But you know, he had his little scandal, and I don't know why, but I don't know if I was speaking at the time. I don't remember when that was, but I remember watching him on the interview, and I could tell he was lying. I've been around people enough to know that he was saying one thing, but his energy was telling a lie. I did not have sexual relations with Miss Lewinsky. I did not have sexual relations. So the thing is, as you watch him, a lot of people will say, I did not have sexual relations with that woman. I did not. And he's shaking his head, yes. The body will always tell the truth because the body knows truth. You might lie all you want to, but the body is going to give it away. I did not have sexual relations, yet his body is saying, yes, I did. Sex. I had sex with her. The other thing Bill Clinton used to do is point. When you point at your audience, guys, very bad thing to do. And he had a habit of pointing. So his handlers had to get him to bring his finger in. And you see he's still trying to point. He would go, I did not have sexual relations. So the finger's pulled back so it's not so aggressive. It's still not the greatest gesture there. But remember, your finger is your sword. Your finger can go up, but it should never go towards your audience because that is accusatory. Nobody wants to be pointed to because you feel that. Sometimes it still happens when I do it, right? You don't want to do that though. So if you will watch your videotapes, play back when you're doing it, make sure you start to get rid of that. Change that gesture to an open giver. You. So Bill Clinton could have said, I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. I did not, right? That would have been softer approach than the point at the media. Okay, so the open pose, very powerful pose.
Yes. When I say program, there's on many different levels we've been programmed. But let's talk about money, for example. The programming runs really deep. Most people in the room have been trained throughout your lives that if you're going to make money, you go out there and you trade an hour of your life to make so many dollars, correct? Is that true?
Now notice the audience. They're dead. This audience was one of my toughest audiences. I remember this. And I hired this videographer to come out, and he was really good. And this hotel I thought would be much nicer, and the walls are horrible. But thank goodness I got a good video out of it. But this audience was, wow. They come in. Guys, understand something. I've been teaching for years and decades, free audiences that come into my room. Now, this was in Fort Lauderdale at the Bahia, Fort Lauderdale Beach. But when people come to my room for a free, here's the difference. When people come in for a free seminar, they do not know you. This is like a circuit seminar business. They do not know you. They saw some ad for making money or for getting healthy or whatever. They come in from all walks of life. I don't know about you, but I can read their energy today so easy when they come in the room. I can already tell who they are because our body telegraphs who we are well before we walk in the room. As we're walking in, that energetic vortex is sent out, right? So I've had people, the most amazing things happen. People, they're always trying to sit at the back, which tells me about them. So here's the thing. You can take this information. It becomes very powerful, guys. If people are trying to sit at the back of the room. Okay, so if I have my room set up, usually the way I have it set up is I have a screen. Okay, then I'll have my area. This is my area here, whether I have a stage or not. And then you'll have these rows, right? Chevron typically with an aisle. Now, it depends on the size of the room. But people come in. I like to have people go to the front first and fill these in. Because if you get a gap chair, what's going to happen is you'll get gaps. Then people are going to fill it in late and it causes distraction. So that's why having people that put these people in the chairs for you, make sure they're all filled in. But people that come in first try to sit back here. Let me ask you a question. When people that come in first to the room try to sit at the back, what's that tell you about those people? Type it in. Now, this is a free seminar. They're coming to get a pitch, basically, and some of them don't know that, but they're coming to get pitched on a product. Could be a money-making product, a healthcare product. Could be a spiritual product. I don't know what it is. Could be anything, whatever your offer is. Tia says they're an introvert. Michael says bird eye view. Well, they definitely get a bird's eye view, but I don't know if that's what they're thinking or what they're hoping for. What it tells me about them is they hide. They hide. That's their pattern. They want to be at the back because they don't want to be noticed, or they want to leave early. And that tells me they're not committed. These are people, and I'll give you an example of that. When I went to my seminar, my very first seminar that I paid a lot of money for, some of you may have heard the story back in Chicago when I went to the stock market seminar. I paid a fortune to go to this because I didn't have the money. I pulled money from everywhere, paid like $5,000. And because I had to make the money back, when I got in that room, I was at the door before anybody else. When they opened that door, I ran to the front. I needed to make that money back. I was serious. I had my notepads. I was ready to go. Nobody was going to stop me from success. That is the kind of people I love to teach. People that hang out at the back of the room, yeah, they're usually not serious. They're wasting time. They're bored. Now, I have converted these people. However, I do call them on that too. How powerful would it be if you said, for those in the back, people that come late, that's what I say. People that come late, it's interesting. You'll find that people have patterns in life. People show up late, that's who they are. They think they just did it here today, but really they do it all the time. That's their modus operandi. I know this because my brother has always been late. Every time we had Christmas Eve, my mom would set up Christmas, be here at 12:30. My mom knew he would not be there until probably 2:30. And so we just started to get to know that my brother shows up late. That's his pattern, okay? So we would always expect 12:30, but really we knew it was going to be later than that. And so the challenge becomes, when people are doing that, can you trust the fact that they're going to follow through? Would you give an important assignment, an important thing to somebody that shows up late? I wouldn't, because that tells me they don't have standards for themselves. I want to be a little bit early, right? Now, if it's a party, you know you're supposed to be a little bit late because it's not a time thing. However, for me, I look at the standards and the energy. So people come in the room, I will call them on their energy because I'm a coach. I don't do it by being mean. I do it by letting them know that I care about them. They took their time out to be here. And I might even say, do you mind if I coach you? Ask permission. And then you can beat them up. But before you beat them up, and by the way, when you beat them up with love. I always beat myself up first, okay? It's very important to do self-effacing, be hard on me before I'm hard on them, and then they appreciate it. But if you're just hard on them, it makes you look like an egocentric jerk. I've done it, I know. I've done both. I know the pattern, okay? So anyway, those are little tips that were not part of this, but I wanted to share it for you.
So, by the way, I will be asking questions. If I ask a question, I'm looking for yeah, it's not a movie. I can see you. Okay.
So there, I asked them, they weren't answering my questions. So I tell them, they don't know. So I tell them, guys, I don't say guys. That's something I'm working on taking out. I would say, team, now we're on the same team. I don't create a barrier. Guys, girls, no. Team, I'm going to be asking questions. If I'm asking a question, I'm probably looking for they'll say answer. Absolutely. And the reason for that is because when you speak it, you remember it. When you engage, you remember more. So it's important we understand we got to tell them why we're looking for that communication. Because you'll learn more. And it's engaging and it's energetic, whatever the reason is. Okay? So now they all agreed.
So please answer, because you'll learn more that way. So if we trade an hour of our time for money, that's trading time for money. A wealthy person will tell you that's the...
Now see what I did there? That's very powerful. That's called anchoring. Is anybody familiar with anchoring? Let me know if you're familiar with anchoring. So I'm going to show you again what I did. It's subliminal, but very powerful. Watch my hand gestures as what I say.
For money, that's trading time for money. A wealthy person...
So I said a wealthy person doesn't trade time for money. So what I just did is I anchored myself to a wealthy person. A wealthy person doesn't trade time for money. A wealthy person actually trades money for money. We create leverage and value, right? So what I've done now, subliminally, they're going, oh, I have a job. I'm working, 60 hours a week, and I'm trading my time, which is the most precious thing I have on the planet, for little bits of money. I'm basically a slave to the boss. I'm selling my value. But they're looking at me because I said, well, a wealthy person doesn't trade time for money. So they're going, I want to be like you. So they're starting to understand the psychology of there's a different way to go about this in business. Because remember, a lot of people that come to that training were in business. A lot of them, though, were startups. They weren't really very functional yet. And so they're still probably having a job and doing a part-time business. So I want them to start to understand that Damon, me, other people that are succeeding, we don't do it like you. We do it different. You might not like it, but that's how you got to do it if you're going to be in our circle. That's kind of the inner thinking around that.
Tell you that's the worst way on the planet to make money. First of all, it's the lowest paid money and it's the highest taxed money. It's called earned income. It's a horrible way to make money. You need to learn to leverage yourself. Any wealthy person will tell you if you're not...
Now, I made a mistake there, and I want you to take note of it. I said, you need to learn to leverage yourself. What did I do wrong with that? Anybody know? And I'm not going to say wrong. Let's put it this way. It's not right or wrong. What could I have said differently that was better? Then you need to learn to leverage yourself. What is a way I could have said that that's more powerful and more effective? Anybody know? What word could I have used instead of you need? When you say you need, nobody likes to be told what to do, right? You need to. That will automatically create, thanks Isaac, if you learn to leverage yourself. I like that. If you learn to leverage yourself. If I tell somebody you need to do something, people automatically will resist that. And we don't want resistance. They don't want to be told that they need to do something. So that's a language pattern error that I made. So I could have said what Isaac said. If you're willing to learn to leverage yourself, well, now they don't feel like I'm telling them what to do. I'm asking them if they're willing to learn, right? Or I could say, you may want to leverage yourself, right? So you can come up with all kinds of different things. That's why it's so good to watch our videos when we're speaking, because we can go back and see the words we're using versus the words we probably should use. Or like Isaac said there, if you learn. Or even better than if, Isaac, what's a better word than if? Conscious language, we're looking at the language. If implies something which is energetically different than another word. What would be another word instead of if? Anybody? If you learn to leverage yourself, you may want to learn, you need to. So you can see this one's very resistant. When you, oh good. And why would we use when instead of if? What's the difference between these two? When you learn, very powerful change between these two words, right? So when you is going to give you the assumption that they're going to do it, the assumption close. If is leaving them space to say, I'm not going to do it. So we're going to assume that they want to be like us and in business. So when you learn to leverage yourself like we do, then you're going to see your income change, your taxes go down, and more financial fortress around you. Okay? Thank you, Ricardo. Absolutely. So that was good. So I'm seeing that error that I made, and thanks for you guys picking that up as well, that you see the difference in those patterns. So I think it's much more clear to do the when you.
Leveraging yourself, leveraging your time, your money, and your skills, you are being leveraged by somebody that knows how to leverage you. So what happens then is you end up becoming a spoke in the wheel, and you can easily be replaced.
Now, what I did there is I showed how, leverage is important. However, they're being leveraged if they're not doing it this way. They are the spoke in the wheel. And by the way, if you lose a spoke, you don't lose the wheel. Understand, the wheel is the business itself. The spoke are the employees. Employees come and go. You're not very much needed. You can be replaced. The wheel, harder to replace because you're going to lose a lot of spokes. So these analogies come in very powerful. And you can put these in, and it's working on their mindset and getting them in alignment with what you're offering them in the training. I also want you to notice how I use my hands a lot. I'm natural at doing that. I've always been a hand talker. Some people are not natural, and they'll make it really awkward. So it's really important to watch your hands to see if they're in alignment with what you're saying, because a lot of times people overdo it and it gets distracting, or they don't do it at all and there's nothing about it that animates it. So there is a balance to doing it, and it can be very powerful. So I just wanted to stop there, and I'll take any questions if you guys have any. But I wanted to kind of go through a little part of my video. I'll be doing more of this over time. But if you're liking it, let me know that. I think it's probably beneficial. Listen, there's a lot of stuff going on right now about potentially more lockdowns. Why do I think this is important? Because I think we need to know how to communicate effectively and speak to monetize. If you cannot turn your words into a lot of money through leverage, that's a skill set you might want to acquire. And that's my whole new thing now. I'm moving from where I've taught trading and, I've taught a lot of things, but speaking has been the one thing, and conscious speaking is now even more of a component where we're understanding what words block us and what words actually elevate us. When we can align our speaking, the right words, with our love and our appreciation and use them as tools, they become the architects of our reality. And if they do lock down again and you have the ability to move through, presentations and be able to convey a message online or offline, being able to bring up information, draw it out on a notepad, walk them through the process. All of this is very powerful so that you can earn income from anywhere. And there's a lot of webinars out there that need speakers. You can create your own brand. But speaking to monetize is about having the right words, that you're aware of the words you're using. And it takes time because we've all been programmed our entire lives. And most people speak with poor word choices, myself included. In fact, the National Science Foundation has found that 80% of your thinking, my thinking, I just pointed at you. Did you see that? Your thinking. Your thinking, my thinking, is negative. And 95% of that thinking is repetitive. So if we think about that, which is more thinking, we're mostly thinking the same stuff we thought yesterday, the same negative garbage. So when we speak, the key is to be able to put our words out by choosing the right words. In the beginning, it takes longer for us to think about what we're going to say, to make sure there's no buts, don'ts, nots, wouldn't, couldn't, shouldn't, all those things that block us. And to start manifesting our reality with the right language patterns, with putting the right words into the universe that create the pipeline, and then the emotion behind it creates the architectural creation of our reality. When we can do this for ourselves, then also move it to a higher level to know that we're impacting people's lives. Remember, your story, your life is your message, and your message must be heard. Everybody out there needs to hear from you in your expertise, in your skill set, in your artisanship, in your teachings, in your knowledge, in your memoirs. So it's really important that people are prepared to speak to monetize. Okay. So if this interests you at all, I'm going to be training on this more and more as we move into this. I am working on some courses, etc. I also do personal coaching. So let me know if you're interested. Just reach out to me. You can always do that at Vince at Authentic Elevation. But anyway, I hope you got a lot out of this tonight. I hope it really brought value. Watch for the other ones. I'm going to try some of these where I put them up as a scheduled post instead of just going live out of the blue. So I'll see about that as well. So you can watch for those as they come out. And if there's anything you want me to cover, throw it out there and I'll see if I can cover that as well. Thanks for coming, guys. Thanks for being part of it. Tia, Michael, Isaac, and Saima. Thank you all for watching. And everybody else, if you're watching on replay, do a hashtag replay in the comments. And thank you so much. Much love. Have a great night. And I'll look forward to seeing you next time on the event. Bye-bye.